Welcome to today's episode, where we explore the transformative impact of Canada's $10 a day childcare initiative. Joining us is Donna Buckland, a seasoned early childhood educator with 22 years of experience and the owner and executive director of Giant Steps Children's Centre. Donna oversees 4 locations serving 302 children and has been a vocal advocate for the rights and recognition of early childhood educators for 2 decades. She believes strongly in the professional status and deserving higher wages for ECEs. Currently, she lends her expertise as a member of the Nova Scotia Minister of Education's advisory table. Today, she'll share her insights on how private childcare centres like hers can play a crucial role in expanding access to affordable, high-quality childcare across the country. Let's dive into this important discussion. So today we are very excited to have Donna Buckland here to share her experience from the other side of Canada under the $10 a day childcare program, and just hear a little bit about some of the challenges that she's faced, some of the stories she has from, being on the ground as an operator and seeing the faces of families as they're waiting to access this affordable childcare program, and just share all of the joys of being a childcare operator under a government program. So thanks, Donna, for being here and for sharing your time and your experiences with us today. Maybe just give us a little bit of background of who you are and your place in childcare.
Sure. So I've been in the childcare industry for 22 years. I run a program called Giant Steps Children's Centre in Upper Tantallon, Nova Scotia. My business partner, Lisa, and myself started in 2002, and we started as a morning preschool program offering morning and afternoon care for 14 little 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds. And our community was growing at the time, like exponentially. It was growing. So in 2004, we built a center licensed for 74 children, and we quickly filled that up. And in 2008, we actually got a special kind of grant loan from the government to expand. It was called an expansion grant at the time. And we built a second center just around the corner, licensed for 68 children. Wow. The nice part about that program is we were still pretty much running our business as normal, but we got a 25% forgivable loan to run it, which was amazing. Then in 2011, we bought a private school that was licensed for 120, and we expanded there. In 2019, we opened an infant program in our first daycare, and then opened a school age program down the road at a local church to offset the children we were displacing to put the infants in. So 4 locations. Sadly, we lost one last year in May to a wildfire, the one that was licensed for 68. So we're in the process of rebuilding that now, which is stressful in its own. Yeah. So since we opened, we've literally just been trying to meet the needs of our community. And it hasn't been easy. It's not like running another kind of business where the government has such a big piece of our pie. In 2016, so we were getting wage enhancement grants since, I want to say, about 2006 or 2007 is when that started, trying to increase the wages of early childhood educators who historically have been super low. And I've been an advocate for higher wages since we started. And in 2016, the government capped our fees, our parent fees. So we couldn't raise our fees, and they implemented a wage scale at the time that was, it seems, extremely low. It was 15, 17, and 19 for a degree, 19 being the highest kind of level, but nothing with experience attached to it. So we were already paying that. So the capping of our fees really, really hurt us. It was about the time that we got together with some other operators and formed a group called Nova Scotia Early Childhood Action Group, where we realized that the people that were already kind of ad hoc and groups weren't really dealing with the issues the way we wanted to see them dealt with. So we formed this group, and we got a seat at the government table. So for the next couple of years, we helped guide things that were happening, and those kind of things. But we were in for a shock in January of 2022 when, first I'll back up a little bit. Our government signed the deal with Nova Scotia in July of 2021.
Okay.
And they signed it prior to 2 months prior to provincial election. So we were a pawn in electoral votes.
Mm-hmm.
They lost the election, and in January 2022, the group that had been putting together the deal for the Canada-wide, so there was a government group that was putting together that deal, met with all the operators in Nova Scotia and basically told us that we had three choices. We went non-for-profit, we sold our business to the government, or we went out on our own. And it was just unbelievably scary. And you know, it was really, really hard. So historically, there in Nova Scotia, the not-for-profit is about 40% versus 60% for private operators.
Okay.
And private operators have been filling the gap since daycare was instituted in Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
And so there was always like a little bit of a history of private versus non-for-profit and that kind of thing. And it was always hard to gather together all of the people, and you'll understand that's because you're doing it now nationally, but even to gather together all operators in Nova Scotia was so challenging.
Yeah.
But after COVID and with Zoom meetings and that kind of thing, it really got easier. So a group of us got together. We're called Nova Scotia Private Operators for Canada-wide Early Learning. And we fought back, and we fought back hard. We hired a publicist. We at one point we were demanding the Alberta model because yours looks so good, and
Oh boy.
and it spoke to private operators,
Mhm.
which we had nothing.
Yeah.
And so we fought pretty hard, and we've made gains. We have a minister's table that I have a seat at, and several other people, and we meet quarterly too, and the minister's always there. She's very engaged in what childcare should look like in Nova Scotia. The plan is good. Some of the benefits that we've seen have been amazing. Those wages that I talked about earlier, those 17 and 19 are now a level 3 ECE is making $29.64.
Okay.
And a level 1 is making $26.55. So
That's
the
good.
wages in Nova Scotia are quite, that's of April 1st. And I think it might have actually gone no, I think that's right for April 1st. We had a little bit of a public service adjustment. They've attached our wages to the public service. So when they go up, we automatically get the adjustment. And there was a bigger one this year than expected.
Do you have provincial benefits?
We have pension and medical launching.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
I said you do have provincial benefits then?
Yeah, pension and
Okay.
medical. Yeah, pension and medical are being launched this year. So many centers had some kind of plan put together. We've had one for about the last 15, 20 years, and it's worked well for our staff. So, you know, this part of the system's working well. What's not working is staffing is still really difficult. Before Canada-wide came out, our province, again, during an election, launched a 4-year-old program called pre-primary, where they took all the 4-year-olds and set up a free program. When they did that, that's where they capped our fees. Then they took all the level 3s and paid them more than we could pay them. And so we're competing with them. So you lose, when that happens, you lose all your staff mentors, and you end up with a program. And it was so bad that the government actually put in staffing plans because you couldn't meet the 2/3 ratio a lot of the times. Then after COVID, it settled down a little bit with a lot of immigration. And that certainly helped us. But what we find with the immigration is a lot of people come in, they come to Canada, they take ECE, they get their PR, and then they go away. And it's been a revolving door. The last couple of years we've done, I think my business partner does it. She counted the other day. I think she was at 22
Wow.
PRs. And and really nothing to show for it. No longevity. We used to have staff that stayed with us 5, 10, 15 years. We still have a few of those, but not like we did.
No,
Yeah.
I think it's
And I think the biggest thing that I find with the Canada-wide that I'm disappointed in is the fact that families cannot find care.
yeah, the accessibility,
Like
right?
they just can't find care.
Yeah,
And I mean, our target was 9,500 spaces by the end of 2026, and they're struggling to do it because the costs went up from when it first happened. Had Minister Suds visited here, can't remember, it was in the fall, I think, to open something or do something. And at the time in her speech, she talked about private centers, and our agreement in Nova Scotia is only expansion and not for profit. So we don't have any, there's several provinces that have a private ability for private to expand, and we don't. So our minister actually wrote an email or a letter to Minister Suds asking if we could make changes because we're struggling, and having private centers take on some of those spaces would be so much of an advantage to providing them.
totally. Yeah. You know, I think that that's something I've been seeing across the country is that while each agreement is so different and some of the struggles that we're having individually as provinces around like a funding model or expansion are unique to our province, the accessibility is by far the national issue, you know, and I believe that it is caused obviously by rolling out a program without having proper consultation or engagement with real on the ground operators. I mean, it is absolutely mind blowing to me that we are just investing $30 billion in a national program without talking to operators like you who could say in 10 minutes, this is not going to work. We need to do it this way. And we're really sacrificing the families and the quality of care long term just for this kind of national agenda to create a public program without really understanding how Canada's childcare system is put together and what the dependency on private operators like yourself and me is.
Yeah.
And then you can't just cut everyone out of this national program and expect the investment in the space to continue or expect the nonprofit portion of our marketplace to be able to take on the demand. It's just totally irrational, right?
Yeah, I think they have to look at the definition of private again, because I'm not running I run another business, and in my other business I get to decide how to set my prices. I get to decide who I can hire. I get to decide so many more things
Yeah.
that I can no longer decide in this business. I am taking in the exact same funds that the not-for-profit down the street is taking in. So I don't understand what the hesitation is other than the word profit.
We
And
have to take the politics out of this totally. And I think it has to go back to the intention, which is to serve and support families and children. And I think if you asked any of your families, they wouldn't have a clue what your business model is. And I don't believe that a family looking for childcare is looking for childcare in a specific business model. I believe they're looking, for environment and quality and the educators and the feel when you walk into the center, not if it's a board-led program like a not-for-profit or a small business like ours. I mean, it just is such a political agenda behind this program, and it's just, I think it's eating away the integrity of the Canada-wide program. And it's, like you say, that it's hurting access to families. And I really am hoping that through some of these, stories from operators across the country and some of the other things we're trying to do nationally, parents will start to see and understand, because I think that they've been kind of bought in and sold to this campaign promise of $10 a day without understanding how it actually works.
parents that have a childcare space are not the parents that we really have to target.
Oh.
It's the ones that are struggling to get a childcare space. Like, I know families are making decisions on when to have a next child based on their childcare options. And
Yeah.
The options are so limited right now. We do a family home daycare. We have an agency as part of our,
Okay.
and they didn't let us expand for the longest time, but now there's quite a bit of expansion that they're allowing private centers to do as well. And they're offering huge incentives to these daycare centers. So we had one open 2 weeks ago, and within 2 hours, she was full with a wait list of 40.
Oh, wow. I,
Like that just speaks to the fact that there is no care.
no, and without access, then you lose your choice as a parent too, right? Because you can't just walk into the program that you want, that you feel like really fits your family and your child's needs anymore.
Yeah.
You're going to take what you can get. And
You take what you can get. Yeah.
and
And for children, for families with children with needs, special
oh,
needs, I see a huge disadvantage because we used to earmark a few spaces every year for children that need space after they got kicked out of another program, or especially like home care, they couldn't, but we don't have that ability anymore. And the numbers of children that we're seeing with needs are probably at least 25 to 30% less than what they were prior to Canada wide.
yeah,
So I mean, these kids are falling through the cracks,
yeah, here too. It's a
and
massive,
it's sad.
yeah. I mean, when you have a wait list, like in Alberta right now, I would say your average like urban city center wait lists are probably 200, maybe 250 families. And then in
Yeah.
rural areas like Grand Prairie, we're hitting like 800 families on a wait list. So when you have that many people waiting for a space and you have a child in your program that you can't support because you don't have the resources, they're burning your staff out. You can't lose staff because there's no staff to choose from anymore. You're going to let that
Yeah.
child go, unfortunately, and take somebody else off the wait list because you just can't support them in a way that is going to be viable and sustainable for your staff, right? It's
Yeah.
just such this cycle, and then they go to another center and the same thing happens. And something that we're seeing here, I would say, is as an unintended consequence again of this program, when you don't engage operators and you roll these things out, is that we really targeted full-time facility-based daycare as the only option, because that's where you get full access to the subsidy and the affordability grants and the true like $10 a day price tag, right? So all of your other programs outside of a large, full-time daycare space are really suffering, because it's a lot cheaper now for families to go to that daycare center than it is to choose a preschool program or a part-time program or a day home or even kindergarten. So now what we're seeing is people are leaving their children in daycare and not putting them into kindergarten. And I think that is going to be just a social emotional mess in 2 years, because as much as daycare supports the needs of children at a certain level, I think kindergarten is so critical in that transition into school life. And I can't
Yeah.
imagine children going from daycare to grade one without having that bridge of kindergarten there. And we're seeing that a lot. It's just starting to kind of start to pop up here in Alberta. But
Yeah,
people can't
school age
afford
spaces are definitely an issue here in Nova Scotia too. I currently have, or I had, 90 and 60 is what I have for school age. But we're gradually starting to eliminate, like we had 5 to 12 was our school age program. Well, we went down to 10 because most of your grade fives and up kind of weed themselves out of the program anyway. And I have 36 primaries that are looking for space in the fall. And like I'm making choices that I don't want to make, which it makes me sad, but I know that you have to make choices for the overall good of the program. And at the same time, I'm not sure how many pre-primary programs across the province that close at 2 o'clock and they have empty classrooms that are filled with
I know it.
lakeshore furniture. And, I'm sure that if they were to keep those children or use that as a school age program, that they could, help the system a bit. And it's
I think,
it's like they refuse to make any choices like that are gonna, you know,
yeah,
put them somewhere they don't want to be. It's just
yeah.
like a different pocket. But I
Well,
don't
I think
understand it
I
sometimes.
think a lot of that innovation and use of, like, using your space outside of kind of that primary program, looking for all those ways you can always support and really utilize your space, often come from the private sector, not always, across the sector from all operators. So again,
Yeah.
when you
And
limit
we
that
can
private
do it.
sector,
Yeah, we can do it for a price that is so different. I was in a meeting, one of these ministers' meetings, and they were telling me the price per space that it costs to build. And I'm like,
I
you're
know.
kidding, right? And I like it was 3 times as much as what I'm building this center that I asked for. So government doesn't know how to spend money properly. And I think that's one of the big things, one of the big advantages of using private is that, we're thrifty. We know how to get the most for the dollar, and we know how to make programs that families are happy with because they always made the choice to choose us before, and it just
I know. I know.
I'm hoping for a change in federal government may make a difference, but
Yeah,
I'm not sure that it will.
I
Like,
know.
I haven't seen any indication that it will. There's not much
I
talk of,
No, I feel like we need to really have awareness for parents so they can make an educated vote, or, advocate for their own choice for childcare, for their, the quality of care for their children moving forward. I think if we continue to kind of like roll out this program nationally for the next 2 years, we're going to lose our childcare system in Canada and in each province. And I don't know how we'll ever get it back. I think, one of the things I wanted to ask you is, what do you think the biggest impact on the childcare system, either in Canada or in Nova Scotia, has been or will continue to be with the rollout of the $10 a day program?
I think we're going to end up with a two-tiered system if they're not careful. And I love the fact that families are all of a sudden, like, over the years, I mean, we've seen families with 3 and 4 children, and a daycare bill that they were paying was astronomical. And the fact that they're getting some relief now, and daycare is not their largest bill, I love that. I love that for my families, for my community, but I don't think there's enough for everybody. And I think that in some ways it should have been attached to income,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't. Like, I know I'm from our centers are a pretty affluent community, so both families are working professionals, and a lot of them could probably afford to pay more than what the 50% is. And maybe it would allow somebody that absolutely can't, who now is probably paying $30 a day at a home sitter. Um, so if it was I think those spaces should be attached to a little bit of financial, like everything else in this
Yeah, no,
country.
I
Yeah.
100% agree with you. I think what we're looking at in Alberta right now, I think, is our province has come to the realization that the federal funds are very insufficient to fund this program at the level of quality that we currently have and what parents expect in our province. And so they're making some changes with the implementation to really take it and stretch the funding to as many families as they can, which is, again, like this whole program, super well intentioned, but falls short in understanding the implementation and all these consequences of how they continue to roll these things out. And what we're going to see is that we're reducing our quality down to like a core, just the basic regulations, your minimum standards here in Alberta, which is terrifying. And I really don't understand why we haven't income tested this model. Like, why are we just funding everyone? Because I'm with you. I get families in my center who are saying to me, I don't need this. Like, I don't need this
Yeah.
grant. I can afford this, the fees for this program. Could you give it to someone else? And we can't. And I think that's something that really goes kind of under the radar with this program, is that the families that are low income, the families that really need affordable childcare, are not the ones that actually have gotten the $10 a day childcare spaces. They're the ones that are sitting on the wait list, because the people that could afford childcare were already in a program or on a wait list when this rolled out. And the ones that couldn't were at home with one of their family members or whatever they were, choosing for childcare. And now they rush out and try and get a spot, and there are 500 people in front of them on a wait list. So we're actually not really servicing those low income, high need families. We're actually just letting them sit on the
And
wait list.
we could fund a lot more
So much.
spaces if it was a copay for families
Yeah.
that could afford it. And it's politically motivated again.
Absolutely. Yeah.
These things come up prior to an election.
Yeah.
And until we get a government that makes changes to the way things are brought about and voted on, we're going to continue to see that. It's not, it's historic, and it's not going to change.
No, I guess this is something too I like to always ask people is if you could say one thing to either the provincial government or the federal government and they were listening to you and hearing you, is there something that you would say that you think that would make a difference moving forward with this program?
I would tell them to go back to the start and get advice from people that are on the ground, boots on the ground, and not worry about being wrong and make this work, because if it could work, it would be a beautiful thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's something that, is going to make our country better and better. But if we can't increase the access to affordable childcare, then why do we have a system that's called affordable childcare?
Exactly. It doesn't matter, right? If you can't access it, it doesn't exist for you, right?
It's just so simple. And yeah.
Well,
I don't want to be a politician, but there's days I wish that I could be whispering in their ear a lot more than I can from where I sit. But
I'm with you. I would love for, either a federal politician, provincial politician to actually come and spend a day in a childcare center, not for photo ops and press releases, but like actually spend a day, talk to the families who are waiting, answer the phone calls that are people looking for spaces, right? And crying to you because they can't take that job offer because they can't get into your center. Like those kind of things, the reality of this program, not just the campaign promises. But I hope that, like you said, I hope we get some changes. I hope that with stories like yours that are being shared, I think we're talking a lot more openly about some of the cracks, and it isn't anymore where it's just, oh, that's an Ontario problem or that's an Alberta problem. It's so great in Nova Scotia, they just love it. It's not. It's the same issues across the country. And I think we're talking to each other now as operators coast to coast and supporting each other. And I really hope that that starts to make a bit more of a national impact, because I often get a little criticism around, bringing up these concerns around the program that somehow that means we don't want it as private operators. And I absolutely think that is such a facade or, some rhetoric. I mean, we opted in. Yeah, it is. We opted into this program. We chose to be part of this because we believed in it. And we know that families need this. But yeah, it's just the unintended consequences of this federal program are adding up, aren't they?
They really are. And I hope that in 20 years, somebody can look back and say, oh, I'm so glad they fixed that and it's going to work. But I have a feeling that even despite all the positive changes, we're still in a negative space when it comes to making this a priority for families in Canada.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Donna.
You're welcome.
Thank you for joining us on today's journey through the heart of Canada's childcare sector. We hope you found inspiration, insight, and a call to action that resonates with you. But our conversation doesn't end here. The quest for high-quality childcare is ongoing, and your voice is essential in this collective journey. Stay connected and continue to be part of this crucial dialogue by following Voices for Care on your favorite podcast platform. Subscribe to receive updates on new episodes and share with friends and family to broaden our community of advocates. Together, we can make a difference in the lives of children and families across Canada. Don't forget to reach out via our social media channels with your thoughts, stories, and ideas for future episodes. Your input helps shape our mission and the future of childcare in our country. Until next time, keep raising your voice for care, because every child deserves a bright start and every parent is entitled to the choice and care for their family. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of Voices for Care.